And welcome back to the all new, all different number one comics podcast. I'm here with Gary, and Gary, what's happening? We are doing the We Read a Comic show, so we did just read a comic. Gary, we read Mighty Morphin Power Rangers: The Return, issue number one. Uh,
Yeah.
Gary, so awesome to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, tonight for me, today for you, I guess, but.
That's right.
Yeah, we're on different sides of the globe, but of course the magic of the internet, we can talk about a comic book together, so
Yeah.
nothing cooler than that. Before we get into it, I wanted to ask you, like, do you have any history with Power Rangers at all?
Yeah, I was such a Power Rangers kid.
You and
We
me
used to
both.
play in the schoolyard and everything.
Yes, I remember. Now, I don't want to reveal too much about my age, but I am 40, so hey, whatever. I put it on Front Street. I said it, but
Oh, okay.
yeah. Whenever Power Rangers was first coming out, in the early '90s, like I was so stoked on it. It was the greatest thing in the entire world, and yeah, just like you, me and all my friends would play it at school. We had all the cool action figures, the ones where you could press in their stomachs and their heads would turn from their normal
Uh,
faces to the
the ones
helmets
that
and
flip.
yeah, exactly. Just a lot of fun. Really loved the Power Rangers, and yeah, I really loved the show. It was really, really important to me, and I definitely, collect all Power Ranger comic books that I can. I have, some of the first few issues that came out like way back in the day, and I of course have the full run of the Boom stuff that's coming out now.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so pretty familiar too, but love the Power Ranger stuff. This one's a little bit different. This is written by Amy Jo Johnson, the Kimberly from the Power Rangers, the Pink
Yeah,
Ranger.
the original Pink Ranger.
Yeah, so really awesome to have her in writing a comic. That's not. I mean, every now and again, people get into this. I can't think of the last one. There was one of the. Gosh, I'm completely blanking on her name now, but one of the lead actresses from Game of Thrones just recently had a comic called Mom a little while ago. And again,
Oh,
I can't remember her name, but yeah,
I think I
uh,
remember Mom the comic though.
yeah. God, I believe it
It's
was
a pretty
in it, but I
strange one,
can't.
wasn't it?
Yes, very. Yeah, had some cool covers, but yeah, it was a really strange
Yeah.
comic. Uh, I really like that though. I really like it. People might see it as gimmicky or whatever sometimes, but like I kind of like celebrities getting into comics. Like it doesn't bother me at all. Now I don't want to take anything away from all the struggling writers out there, and these people have one up because the name recognition, but
Yeah.
it's still cool to see them get into the game and kind of try to prove themselves like this. Um, this one's co-written by Matt Hodson, and I don't see very many credits for him at all. Like him and Amy Jo Johnson look like they both wrote on the Power Rangers 30th anniversary book, and that's it
Hmm.
before they moved over to this. So this is like kind of both of their first writing credit. And then we have the
That's
artist.
pretty impressive, to be honest.
I know. Tell me about it.
Considering
Really
how good
impressive.
this book is, like,
Yeah, once we get into it, yeah, it's written very well. So, yeah, really impressed with that. And then the art's by Nico Leon, and Nico has done a lot of stuff: Miss Marvel, Catwoman, Spider Man, Hulk, Fantastic Four, just lots of stuff over at Marvel, some stuff at DC too. But of course, the art's really good in this as well. Um, I want to just go over the synopsis really quick, so our listeners
alright.
have something to relate to. From Boomsite here. In an alternate universe, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers finally defeated Rita Repulsa and Lord Zed, but at a terrible cost. In the wake of tragedy, the team went their separate ways. 22 years later, the long disbanded team reunites to mourn the losses of beloved friends, but Zack and Billy have some unexpected information to share. Jason, the Red Ranger, has been operating as a lone vigilante, has since disappeared. Will the remaining Rangers be able to track him down, especially with the mysterious figure in pursuit? Written by actress, screenwriter, and director Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Ranger herself, and rising star co writer Matt Hodson, and renowned artist Nico Leon, fans can experience something unlike anything they've have ever before in the Power Rangers universe in TV or comics. So a pretty good setup there. They Boom's definitely good at like hyping this up because that's a pretty good synopsis.
Right.
I really like the way they put that. Let's get into the book. Let's talk about it, Gary.
All
You
right.
know, the book opens up with, like a one page, recap of the team's last mission 22 years ago before they broke up,
Hmm.
and then they slide over to present day, and we see Jason the Red Ranger, um, and he's like in a rundown command center.
Right.
And like, if we want to paint a visual for the listeners here, like, I don't know, what would you equate that to? Because that, I mean, it's like a post-apocalyptic looking command center. It's been, completely weathered to time and everything.
Yeah, right. It's pretty destroyed.
Yeah,
So that's the
looks
place where
like
they used to hang out with Zordon and Alpha, but it's wrecked, but it's still there. So
yeah, the building's somewhat intact, but yeah, it's just completely run down. It looks like it's definitely seen its better days, and yeah, we have Jason in there, and he a shadowy figure comes and takes Jason down, and then takes his power coin. So,
yeah,
uh, did you have any thoughts whenever? Of course, we don't have to spoil anything, and it's not revealed in this issue, anyways. But did you have
Hmm.
any thoughts on who that shadowy figure might be?
Besides a woman, no, not really. It looks like it might be a lady, but
Hmm.
who it is, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. I was like, it's somewhat ambiguous, but still, like, I kind of aired on the side of it was a female character, so that's kind of what I thought. Also, uh, after that in the book, it flashes over to Angel Grove, and Billy is giving a speech, and he's dedicating a memorial park and youth center to Trini, the Yellow Ranger, and they're going over how wonderful of a person Trini was, and she was the longest serving mayor of Angel Grove and everything. And I think that was pretty impactful. Of course, you and I both know that in real life,
Sorry, there's a fire truck.
you can, hey, some excitement for the listeners. No problem at
Right?
all.
Wow.
I loved it at first because I was like, "Is that an ice cream truck?" But
Oh, I wish it
no,
was. No
I
fire
know
truck.
ice cream would be so much better than a fire right now. But um, uh, this kind of course, like, correlates with real life. The actress,
Mm.
now I can't think of the actor's name, who played the Yellow Ranger, but
I always get this wrong. It's got a
Quan,
K.
yeah,
Quan.
Quan, maybe, yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, she passed away in real life, of course, in the very early
Mhm.
2000s, 2001, 2002, something like that. She died in a car accident. So,
Yeah, it's really too bad, and it feels really personal in the writing that it's really well done. Where in the story it's about the character in the story, but it also feels like a real life thing for Amy because they were close
yeah, I
in
mean, you
real
can
life.
tell they were definitely, friends on set, of course, and to think that you have somebody who you shared such a bond with taken away at such a young age, it must have really affected her. So, and
Hmm.
I, even read online, a lot of people were thinking like, "Wow, Amy must be, working through some stuff here."
Yeah,
I
I had
think,
the same reaction, but it feels really that makes it feel really personal and real to me. So I really enjoyed that part of it.
yes, you and me both. I think it's a great connection point there for us in the audience, especially people like you and I who are, we were Power Rangers fans. We connected with that cast and everything, and it's very sad that she was taken away at such a young age, and all of that. Um, so we see from there that of course, Billy is giving a speech dedicating the youth center and Memorial Park, and we've got Zach over there in the background on the stage with him, and then Kimberly shows up in the crowd. So, I don't know. Again, like, a weird dynamic. Like, you can kind of tell by the cover, or I guess there's some indication, that, and then by the title as well, the return, that at least somebody wasn't going to be there, like, front and center. But
Mhm,
it's
yeah.
really interesting the way that they play this. I like it a lot because Billy and Zach are still kind of close. They're still there in Angel Grove. Of course, they were close with Trini when she was still alive and everything, and Kimberly is gone, and left that whole world behind. She's going by a different name. She lives in Canada now. Uh, it was kind of cool to just see her, like, in the back of that crowd there.
Yeah, she's hanging out in the back there, and then Zach is the one who wrote kind of a book. It tells you later on he wrote a book about his time as a Power Ranger. So he's the one that's allowed to take the credit for everything that the Power Rangers did.
Yeah,
And she's
right.
the one
He's
that's
kind
like,
of the celebrity of it,
yeah,
and
the
really
crowd are going
the
wild when he goes on the stage. They're like,
oh,
"Woo, Black Ranger!" There's even some people with
exactly.
costumes and stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Which is really cool. And I mean, I can almost imagine, if this was a real life scenario, if there was actually people out there doing this and they wanted to protect their identities. Of course, you would have somebody, who wouldn't be able to hold back, and somebody who would, I could only imagine. But yeah, at this point, we learned that Zach is the only one, um, who's out in public as a Power Ranger, and everybody else has remained hidden and promised that they wouldn't reveal their identities. They came up with a pact together to not reveal their identities to the public. Um, in the next scene, Zach meets Kimberly at Trini's graveside, and we learn again that she moved away and goes by a different name, uh, so no one can connect her to that past. And uh, she very reluctantly agrees to go have dinner with Zach and Billy. Now, I think this is about the midway point in the comic, like maybe a few more pages or whatever. But what were you expecting here? Because I had my expectations, but with them bringing her out to dinner and really trying to get her there, like what were you anticipating this conversation was going to be or was going to happen at this
Ah,
dinner?
yeah, I had no idea really because, like we said before, Zach was the one that's taking all the kind of credit and being the celebrity, and
Hmm.
Kimberly, well, she's not Kimberly anymore. She's what's her name now, Emma. She's
Yes,
hiding in the
Emma.
crowd and just watching. So it looked like
Mhm.
she showed up for the memorial, which is really
Yep.
important to her, but she doesn't want anything to do with being a Power Ranger. So yeah, I didn't know what they were going to talk to her about. Of course, we saw Jason at the beginning, so you could kind of guess maybe something's going on with that. But she seems like she's not interested in that at all. So yeah, she goes begrudgingly.
Yes, very. And yeah, like you pointed out there, Billy reveals that he's been using the Morphin grid to experiment in in safe mass teleportation, and Zach's been using it for clean energy for the festival that he's been hosting. And
Yeah, I
they
really
tell,
loved it. I thought that was so smart to be like,
I
if you had
know
that technology, what would you do with it as an adult?
exactly. They're using it for good purpose. They're using it for a lot of good things. Of course, I think there's a scene in there or a panel where Billy kind of relates it back to, saying we could get people out of harm's way. We can move people away from hurricanes or remove hurricanes entirely. And then he gets into, we could take cells out of people. We could take those cells that are hurting people out. And of course, they kind of allude to the fact that probably Trini has died of, maybe some form of cancer or something. So
Yeah, because
a
Emma says it
really
wasn't your
sad
fault.
moment.
Like it's not your fault that you couldn't help her. So
And
they don't exactly say what happened, but yeah,
yes,
it's kind of alluded to.
and I really like that because it's such an interesting way to think, and I don't want to like bring anybody down or anything like that, but I you always get that thought in your head. I don't know if you've ever experienced the loss of like a loved one due to like a disease or anything, but you always get that
Mm.
feeling of like, is there something I could do? Like I can't believe there's not a cure for this. There's no way to help this person. Like there's got to be something we can do. You always like have that hope and that urge to be able to do something to help them. So I like that they made it so personal in this book here to put just a small line like that in.
Yeah, it's really like I said before. It's so impressive how well written and how put together this is. Considering it said you said before that Amy is a screenwriter, but this is the first
Hmm.
time she's written a comic, which is like
Yep.
vastly different. But it's
Very.
still so good.
Yeah, completely agreed. And then they really kind of get down to it, and they tell Kimberly that they asked her there to talk about Jason. So they want to talk about Jason, and Zach explains that Jason has been using the Morphin Grid to save people on his own, and he's kind of turned into like I don't know, like what you would call it, like we were talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles earlier, kind of like the last Ronin or whatever, like that kind of thing. He's
Mhm.
he's the Avengers Twilight of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers universe. He's he kind of can't let it go. He's got to go out and be that savior, that vigilante, Um, and at this point, he wants to stay morph permanently, but there's a problem because someone else is using the Morphin grid, and they
Mhm.
don't know who, but they were assuming that it might be Kimberly. And of course,
Yeah,
taken from this conversation, we definitely don't think it's Kimberly. But
no. But it's like they all said we're not going to use the morphing grid at all anymore, and
mhm.
the only one who actually didn't was her.
Yep.
So she turns up at this diner and finds out like all of you have broken your promise. Like, wow,
Hmm.
okay. And she's
Yeah.
upset too. She like smacks the table.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so dramatic. It's not good.
And I love that. I mean, I think that that's the really good thing about this comic. Like, what makes it so good is like, we're talking about Power Rangers, we're talking about fantastical things, of course, but at the same time, there's so much human element in this. There's so much,
Yes.
raw emotion that really like bleeds through the pages. It's very good.
Yeah, that was really the secret sauce to the whole thing for me, where we've gotten these like Power Rangers comics recently, and they're clearly for fans, right? But it's
Mhm,
putting
mhm.
the action and the Power Rangers part first, where this is doing it the complete opposite way, where like we had a little bit of the Power Ranger stuff at the very beginning, and now we're going back and it's all character stuff for like the rest
Yep.
of the issue, and it works so well, I think, because when we do get some like fighting stuff, which we're clearly maybe going to get coming up, it's going to have so much more weight now.
Yep. Yeah, we're very invested in these characters again, and I think that that's a hard line to cross over because it can be seen as like fan servicey or kind of cheesy or whatever. Sometimes to bring up these old like kind of legacy characters or whatever that way, but that's like you said the secret sauce there. They got us invested in these characters again and made us really care about them and what's going on in their lives, which I think was probably I don't know. It seems like a challenging thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. It would be easy to write like a comic, like you said, full of fan service and just like appealing
Mhm.
to the people who watch the show. But they did that, but they also kept in mind like everybody's aged by like 20 years.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they know that the audience that's reading this are most likely grown too. And
Hmm.
I love the way that it treats the characters in the book and the readers as people who have all grown up since the last time we saw these characters.
Yeah. It's done really really well. I was very impressed by that. Going back to the story, basically Zach and Billy tell Kimberly that they need to become Rangers one last time to save Jason.
Yeah,
Um,
one last job.
Yep. We got to get together one last time. Now, I really like the way that this goes too, because this is going to be wrapping up the book, and this is the pretty much the end couple of scenes here. But
Mhm.
what I was expecting was her to say no, a hard no, a hard line in the sand. I'm not doing it. Whatever. She gets in the car to go back to the airport and everything. And what I thought was going to happen was she was going to say, "Damn it, I've got to turn around and go back." That's what I was anticipating.
Uh-huh.
But instead, what we get is the next day, somewhere in Canada, Kimberly is comfortably sitting in her living room,
Yeah, she said no
and
and she went home.
yeah, she said, "I'm not doing it. I'm going back home." And then there's a knock at the door, and it turns out to be Trini's. Now, let me get this right. I believe it was Trini's cousin's daughter. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, because I kept wanting to say niece, and I'm like, that's not it. But
no,
yeah,
yeah, tangentially related somehow. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's Trini's cousin's daughter, and she's looking for Kimberly, and she's shown up with a picture of Kimberly and Trini, and she has. Now, here's where I'm going to sound like a complete fake fan. I can't remember what the
Oh,
hell that thing's called. I know the
Morpher.
power coin's in there, but whatever the thing that holds the power coin, uh,
Yeah, the Morpher, right?
yeah, sure, that
Is it
sounds
called a
right.
Morpher, I think? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, where
uh,
does she get that?
exactly. She's got it, and yeah, she says to Kimberly, you're gonna make me the new Power Ranger, and that's how we end that book. So ends on a great note. A lot of stakes there, a lot going on, and again, they at least for me, I don't know about you, Gary, but I just
Mhm.
completely was not expecting that. I was completely expecting
No.
Carter turnaround. That's where I was going
Yeah,
for
that would
that.
be the predictable way for it to go. So I really liked they didn't go that way at all.
Yeah, they really kind of pulled it out of left field. Uh, of course, let's talk about it really quick. And obviously we both like the writing and everything here. What did you think about this story? Like as far as this first issue and the implications and what might happen next. What did you think about like the way the dialogue was written? All of that.
Like I said before, like I really loved how adult it feels and how real everything
Mhm.
feels. And like we got just a little spoon of action at the beginning with like the Red Ranger and his suit's all damaged and it looks so cool. And
Yeah.
then like another page later of him like being a firefighter and saving people, but mostly it's about the characters, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, there's going to be some Power Ranger action happening later, so I thought the balance was really good. It's a really nice tease to keep reading, and then yeah, you get that last page reveal of like someone else has a morpher and a coin, so that means there's
Yep.
a mystery person using the grid that maybe has done something to Jason, and then now she showed up and she wants to use the morpher and the morphing grid, but we don't know why or how she got that morpher, what her plan is. So there's like all these little threads of like mystery through it too.
Yeah,
It's like a
they
drama and it's a mystery. Like there's so much going on. It's awesome.
it really is. They really injected the drama into it, and it doesn't even, it doesn't seem soap opera-y at the same time. Like it really moves at a really nice pace.
Hmm.
I think that that's one of the things I was most impressed with this book was the pacing. I really wasn't expecting that. Like you, I kind of thought, all right, there will be a lot of action, there will be a lot of fan service, whatever. Especially with Amy Jo Johnson co-writing, she's really going to play into that. We're going to do a lot of fan service because I am the Pink Ranger and everything. And I mean, it's not, there's a comfortable amount here. Sure. There's a little bit, but there's nothing that was done at cost to the story at all.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, it was actually done very, very well. This was, when I told people about this book, when I said I'd read it and all of that, that was definitely my review for it. I'm like, this is way, way, way better than it needed to be.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure. I was shocked in
yeah,
like the best way. Like,
exactly. I was expecting just such low stakes and just, all right, we're returning to, being Power Rangers as, middle-aged people or whatever.
yeah, I expected it to be fun, but
Mhm.
I didn't expect it to be like engrossing like this. Like, it
Yes.
was a really nice surprise.
Yeah, very, very intriguing story. So how about the art then? How did you feel about this art?
I think it looks really good.
Mhm.
The facial expressions are really nice, and then like in those first few pages, we get the Red Ranger, like we were talking about in the destroyed base, and
Yes.
maybe it's just my personal thing, but I always think capes look cool. So he's got like this battle damaged helmet with a big crack in it, and this big like brown kind of like dirty cape, and it looks so cool.
It really does, and you can just imagine, him out there like, uh, saving people all this time by himself and everything. That stuff would be pretty weathered and and beat up. Yeah, there's a wonderful portrayal here of that, I don't know, costume or whatever I'm supposed to call it. But yeah, uh, and I'm with you. The characters look great. The facial expressions look great. Now, I do want to call out one thing, and I
Oh,
agree or disagree, or let me, maybe not call out isn't the right word. Let me ask your opinion.
okay.
While I felt like, if obviously if you look at Jason, whenever his mask is or his helmet's taken off, you look at Billy, you look at Kimberly, definitely Trini in that giant picture at the memorial and everything. The characters look somewhat aged. Now
Mm.
look at Zach, and he looks like he's freaking 16 years old still. He just looks great. I mean, I can't believe it. Uh,
He does look
but
very youthful. He's got a beard
yes,
going on, but
yeah,
you're
he's
right.
got the little goatee, but yeah, I mean, I want the face cream that Zach's using because holy crap, he
Yeah, for
looks
real.
he looks great. Really, really good look on him. But yeah, I think the art here is really good. One of my favorite things is, I don't know if you recall this off the top of your head, but whenever those flashback scenes to the '90s,
Mhm.
where uh, Trini and Kimberly are kind of like training in the gym and everything, that stuff looks great. It looks wonderful. I love that stuff.
It's so
I
bright.
actually, I right. I mean, it just looks like the '90s. um,
Yeah, it really does.
I could have used a little more of that. I wouldn't have been disappointed at all. Hopefully, we have a little bit more, maybe some upcoming issues or something. But yeah, I
Yeah, I
think the
wonder
art here is
because
really good.
they addressed Trini and they like just barely touch on Tommy. Like there's a
Yes.
shot of Tommy's grave, who unfortunately in real life has also passed.
Yep.
So I wonder if they're going to go back into that at some point.
Yeah.
We might get some more in the past.
And I think that
With
that would
him.
be really interesting to revisit some stuff with Tommy. Of course, Tommy has been the focus of a lot of the Power Ranger comics. It's been like
Yeah, because
a
everybody
central
liked the White
character.
Ranger. It was so
Yeah,
cool.
oh yeah, definitely. How could you not? I mean, he introduces green, turns white, all of that. Yeah, great stuff there. But yeah, I think taking a deeper dive into some more of these characters. Now we do get Bulk and Skull are there in the
Yeah, in the
audience for a second.
crowd.
Yeah, that was great. I love that. We have the one
We
character I
look the
can't
same.
remember his name, the guy that always wears the Hawaiian shirt. He's
Hmm.
there. Uh, but yeah, I think if we could take a little bit deeper of a dive into some of the surrounding characters, secondary characters. I'd love to see that. I'm sure, hopefully, they'll get there. But yeah, this
Yeah, they
was
included them, so I hope they get a little bit more time.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they at least had a little cameo there, so hopefully they'll expand upon that a little bit more. Um, I definitely, I see a really bright future for this book. I think it's really really good. I think that you know, people who have any type of connection to the television series would definitely be able to pick this up and jump right in and really feel some nostalgia for it. And
Yeah, for
again, I
sure.
think the most important thing is it's not just fan service. They
Yeah,
really
this
do
is not
something
like an
with it.
action book so far.
No. Yeah, it's really good, and they're really really building these characters up and making us invest in them again. So I think that that's really cool. Uh, and here's one thing, the most important question that we always ask on this podcast, and the reason being, we always cover number one, we always cover first issue comic books. So,
Hmm.
the question is, do you suggest that people pick this up, and do you suggest people moving on to issue number two? I know my answer. I think I know yours, but
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Like, if well, it's difficult to say. Like, I wouldn't say this is just for fans of the show. Really, like, it's
mhm,
good on its own. Like, it's
it
so
really
good.
is.
So I'd
I'm
recommend it to anybody, really. But I feel like if you know the show and you have nostalgia for the show, it'll work for you. If you don't, it's still a really good book that will work if you didn't watch the show. So I feel like really anybody could pick this up and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'm with you. There's enough there. Of course, if you know the Power Rangers well, if you just know of them, there's enough in here without a whole bunch of exposition for you to be caught up and know what's going on. Okay, these people
Yeah.
were Power Rangers and they stopped being Power Rangers, and they throw you right in the story. So I'm with you there. Yeah, that's definitely my answer too. Absolutely, I think everybody should pick this up and put it on your pull list because it's actually really really good, written really really well. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I love this. Like, we're in a really good time for 90s kids now. Like, so much
Oh yeah.
stuff is coming back in comic form, especially.
It
And
really is.
it's fun to see those, but I really wish more of them were like this, where they, yeah, like I mentioned before, they're like, well, we know you've grown up since you watched that, so we're gonna give you the taste of what you used to like, but we're gonna age it up for you too, which is like
Yep.
so cool.
Yeah, I'm
It's
just
really that's must be so tough to do. I don't know. I have no idea how they pulled this off. Really.
I agree. I mean, it was so much better than it needed to be, and just a really good comic. So I'm really happy about it. I'm really excited that we got to sit here and talk about it for a little bit. So
Yeah, that
uh,
was fun.
I hope I don't know, other franchises or whatever other IP will take a cue from this and maybe do something with the property that they have. I'd love to see a 90210 comic or
Oh my
you
gosh.
I don't know, throw me something crazy. Give me an Earthworm Jim book again or something.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I think there's some really cool stuff that people connect to that you can really do something with, and like you said, kind of age it up to uh, think about the age of the audience and really write a story in that way, a compelling story
Mhm.
that we can be invested in. Really, really cool stuff. I think that about wraps it, though. Unless you have anything else you want to say about the book.
No, I don't think so. Other than this is what I always say: if you enjoyed it, make sure that you tell the creators that you enjoyed it if you can. So if you have Twitter, make sure you at them, let them know that you enjoyed it, because they don't always get to hear that from their publishers or from anybody. So it's really a small thing that you can do, but really does help.
I think that that's a really, really good point. That's something that, that's like a lost art. People forget it's so easy to go on, especially, we're talking about now, and now I don't know your feelings, but, we just had Madam Web come out and everyone's shitting all over it, saying it's the worst movie ever made and all this stuff.
Ah,
But whatever, that's a whole other story. But, it's so easy to go on the internet and complain about things and say stuff is horrible and all of that. Why
yes.
not go on the internet and say, hey, this was really awesome. You did a really good job on this book. I can't wait to see what else you do.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, Madame Web is not doing well, but I haven't seen it myself. The same thing happened with the Marvels, and now
Yep.
everyone is saying how good it actually was after they watched it.
Yep.
It's such a shame that like you said, it's so easy to go and be annoyed about things or to say how terrible something is, but it's a rare thing that somebody takes the time to say that something was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite an easy thing to do, really. So yeah, if you let the creators know that you liked it, it's a nice little boost for them. They don't always get that feedback from whoever their handlers are. They don't always know how well or not a book sold. So yeah, it's a really nice thing to do. If you just tell somebody that you liked it, they get that message directly from you. It's a little confidence boost for them, or a little pat on the back for them, whatever. I think it's a nice thing to do if you can.
Yeah, it really is. And I definitely challenge all of our listeners to do that. Like Gary said, hop on Twitter or X or whatever it's supposed to be called, get on
Yeah,
Instagram, whatever you got to do. And let Amy Jo Johnson know, let, the other creators of this book know, hey, I really enjoyed this book. It was really good. And I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. Uh,
yeah.
a little bit of positivity in the comic book community definitely does not hurt. Well, then, with that being said, Gary, again, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me tonight. It was awesome having you on. I look
Thank you. It
forward
was really
to
fun.
talking to you again about something else. So,
Yeah,
thank
I
you
hope
so
so.
much.
Yeah,
And
thank you too.
thank you. Welcome back to the all new, all different number one comics podcast and the I Read a Comic mini series that we're doing as well. We've got a special guest creator on the line. We have writer DB Andry. DB, hello, welcome
Hello.
on.
Hi, thanks
Hey,
for having me.
no, thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing this lovely?
Good. Good. Little tired from Super Bowl yesterday. Ate too much food, but that's standard, I think.
Right? I think this was I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a 40-year-old dude. I think this is the very first year I ever watched the Super Bowl. Like, I actually sat
Oh
down
gosh,
and watched it.
there you go.
It was my first time. But I was like, look, if they're going to keep cutting over to Taylor Swift, I'm in.
Hey, that's right. Hey,
That's,
I didn't have
yeah.
a problem with it either. I'm a
Yeah.
football fan for life. I've seen every Super Bowl that I've been alive. And yeah, so I'm fine with however much they want to show her.
Right.
I think today should be a national holiday, like National Digestion Day or something.
Right. I
'Cause
mean, I'm sure there was a lot of beer, a lot of, like, I don't know, chips, something, whatever people eat for Super Bowl,
yeah,
but a
60,
lot.
60 million tons of chicken wings.
Sure. There you go. Chicken wings. That's the one I was looking
Yeah.
for. Yeah, a lot of all of that consumed. Well, then let me ask: did the team you wanted to win?
I didn't have a horse in this race. I'm
Okay.
a Saints fan. My family's originally from New Orleans area, so um, I do have I'm in Sacramento, so I do have a ton of 49er fans.
Mhm.
And for some of them, I really wanted the 49ers to win. And for some of them, I really wanted the 49ers to lose. So
So you came
it
out okay either
it
way.
worked out fine for me. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, exciting nonetheless. Well, let's talk about now that we got football talk out of the way, and that's probably the most football talk I could possibly do. I don't even know what a quarterback is, so I'm 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 one of those comic book readers. But let's talk about comics.
All
Let's
right.
talk about you've got some history in comics. This is definitely not your first rodeo at all. So I would like to talk about some of the stuff that you've done before this, before we get into this book, which we are talking about Morningstar today. So we'll absolutely get into that. But
Yeah.
You've done some work over at Vault Comics with Resonant.
Yes.
Um, a I think that's such a cool book, and if you guys haven't read it, what the hell are you doing? But
Yeah.
it
What's wrong with
wrapped
you,
up
Mike?
with like a yeah, it's so good. It's a 10 issue run, and it wrapped up. What was that? The middle of like 2021, I think, right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
It's been about
it's been
3
a minute.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, such a cool book though. I don't even want to give anything away. Like all I can tell you is like trust me, you want to read this book. It's so cool. I think I remember hearing like a while ago there was like some option news or anything. Is that still something that's in the works?
It is actually still moving forward. Yeah. So
Wow, so cool,
option,
so
yeah,
cool.
option is always the first like step, and
Hmm.
then Resident actually survived a couple of steps down that path. So nothing that I can officially talk about yet, but
Sure.
I have seen things and I have read things, and so it feels like it's still moving forward. So
Hmm.
it like everyone I think is aware now, things can get completely made and then never shown. With like the Batgirl movie and the Acme Coyote movie and stuff with WB, that stuff being killed for tax purposes.
Right. I
So
just heard about that today. Wow.
yeah, you can't really count these chickens until you're actually eating the chicken.
Hmm.
So all I can say is it hasn't died yet, and
Sure.
it's still moving forward. So that's pretty exciting.
Well,
Um,
such a fun story too. Like I mean, like I said, this is something you're absolutely going to want to read. You're going to want to make sure you have, at the very least, a copy of number one. But at least the full 10 issue run before this comes out. It's going to be, yeah, this is going to be great. So
yeah, really conveniently, you can buy the full 10 issue run omnibus. Is for pre-sale right now. You can order it on Amazon. It comes out, I believe, the first week in April. I think it's April
see,
5th or something like that. So you may be able to still order it from your comic shop, but you can order it online from bookstore.com or Amazon or bookstore.org or Amazon, and yeah, it'll be delivered on release date. It's all 10 issues in one uh, trade. We were going to do a hardcover, but it ended up being too costly with the printing prices have gone up a lot recently.
sure, along
So
with everything else.
yeah, so to keep it at a $25 price point, which is really great for basically two trades, you get the entire
Yeah.
Resonant story in one volume. So buy that because that's everything.
Yeah, definitely buy that. You're gonna want that. Definitely, absolutely worth it. I'll make sure that there's links for all of that in the show notes as well. So everything for sale and all that will be in there. You also have done work for End After End, and that's still ongoing right now from Vault Comics. So
Yep. FOC for that is, I don't know when people will see this, but FOC for that is today, I believe, for the
okay,
last issue of End After End. So we
yeah,
did
because that's
a
dropping what March 13th.
yeah, so we did a double sized finale. So instead of 10 issues, there's 9 issues. So you get the 2 issues in one. Um, and yeah, End After End should come out the 6th of next month of
Oh,
March
okay.
6th. So that is FOC of that is today. So hopefully you already ordered it, or you can pick it up at your local comic shop. Um, and that just wraps up the story. I'm really super proud of the ending of that, and I hope people kind of stick with it. It's been kind of a lot of sputters and pauses, and COVID things happened to that book, and it was a labor of love to get it finished.
I think dealing with the pandemic in the way that we did, like especially as comic book fans and readers, and definitely you guys on the production side of it as well. I think everybody's persevered, and we're all it happens. Nobody had any control over it, so nobody faults anybody, and also yeah, we got pauses in some of these stories, but it only made us want them even more. So yeah, very very good book. You also, at Vault Comics have worked on Nightfall double feature, a few issues of that. One thing that I really want to illustrate, just really quick, right here, is your story in Creep Show. You did
Yeah.
uh, a story in a. issue number 5 of the Creep Show. For that
volume 2.
Issue.
Volume 2.
Yeah, sorry, second volume of Creep Show.
Yeah.
Really, really cool story. I don't want to give much away about it, other than like it's like a monster in your closet, monster in your bed type of story. But something like that. That's the most I'll say about it. But yeah, really cool. Make sure you guys check that out. But yeah, so like I said, DB's got some credits to his name. We don't got to worry about that. Not new in the game or anything. So you can trust the product here. But let's talk about Morningstar. Morningstar releases on March 27th, and yeah, it's going to be a very exciting book. I had the pleasure of checking out the first issue, and it is very, very good. And this is coming out from Mad Cave Studios March 27th. So what can you tell us, or what can you tell the audience about this book?
Yeah, it is kind of an Amblin style family horror. Yes. And that's kind of, it's set in the 1950s and really kind of trying to capture the time. The artist Marco Finnegan has a very kind of like classic comic book style. He's definitely a throwback artist. And so with his style married with the time, and then with Jason Wordie doing color that looks specific to the time as well, hopefully people feel not only transported by the story, but the visuals that are with the story will kind of transport you to this time period, because the color, the pages kind of look like they're from a comic you would find in the 1950s. And so it's about a family who has lost their, the husband / father, and they go to scatter his ashes at this place called the Morningstar Lookout, which is kind of a fire station lookout in the Montana woods. It's kind of a special place for the family. They spend a lot of time together. And then I like to say spooky things start to happen without giving anything away. There's going to be a lot of mystery, a lot of like, what the hell's going on as you're reading this comic. And then we're going to bring it all together in the end. So it's 5 issues out through Mad Cave. It's the first book I've worked with them, and they've been an amazing publisher to work with. All 5 issues are pretty much finished with the exception of some coloring and lettering. So there should not be any delays. This should come out monthly. It's going to be my first book that's going to come out monthly, and we're going to hit all of our deadlines, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, very cool. Look, after everything that's happened, dealing with all those pandemic pauses and all of that, yeah, that's got to be exciting to this is going to come out on time, monthly. We hit 5 months in a row there.
And this comic is really a testament to perseverance. My co-writer on this, Tim Daniel, this was a pitch him and Marco had worked together on 10 years ago.
Wow.
And actually had thought that the comic was going to be made then. And of course, like a lot of projects, things fell apart. And, they, both worked, Tim has done multiple books since that, The Curse and Plot. And, but he never let this idea die. And we started working together a couple of years ago with End After End being our first book together. And then all the other books that you mentioned, other than Resident, me and Tim are co-writers on. Mm-hmm. And so this has been a project that he just held on to and loved. And when we started working together, he brought it to me. And, with that in mind, it's like, hey, I've wanted to do this for such a long time. What do you think about this? Is this something that you can work on? And I always have to kind of, when we work on a project together that he has developed a little bit before me, I have to always see if I have an in to it, right? If I have like a personal connection that I can create with these characters. And this one was really, really easy to connect with. And it was really fun to work on and help them get this over the finish line with the help of Mad Cave. So yeah, really excited for people to see this because, especially for Tim and Marco, I mean, this is something they had high hopes for and then were crushed, and now it's resurrected again. And so it's kind of a magical thing that a lot of times these pitches and ideas, when you get a bunch of no's, they don't die, they just marinate and hopefully get better with time.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things about this story, here in this first issue. Well, there's many things. Let me go ahead and point that out first. This is like, there's so many layers to this. It seems very straightforward at first, and then you're like, oh, okay, no, there's actually like quite a bit of substance. There's stuff going on here, definitely. But I think, down to its core, that emotional connection right off the bat, and this isn't spoiling anything. I think it's pretty much said in the solicit there is and you just talked about it too. We lose that father of the family, that what's the word, patriarch, matriarch, whatever. But yeah, whichever one it is. But we lose that member of the family, and it's so, sometimes it can be a trope to try to connect people to things like that. Sometimes it can be, just kind of thrown in there or whatever, and there's not much of a emotional connection you can make to it. This is written in a way to where, I mean, you kind of feel that grief from these characters. You feel what this did to that family, and it's illustrated there on the page very well. Also, yeah, just a very wonderful job kind of showing that grief without going into something, like insane, like,
Well, yeah, that was part of kind of what I wanted to bring to the book was, how do different people deal with grief differently, and his Jolene, the mother, and wife to Nathan who died, she doesn't have as a lot of options that she doesn't get to deal with grief maybe 100% like she wants to,
Mhm.
because she still has these responsibilities. And then you have Charlie, the youngest, who may be dealing with it a lot differently than Maribeth, the teenager, who kind of understands the actual loss that she's gotten. She's old enough to understand what this truly means, and it's not just a sadness, it's an emptiness. And so they deal with this grief a little bit uh differently, and that was something I wanted to explore a little bit without it being like, oh, this is a total downer. But yeah, you get a lot of that, significant other or important person dying, and that becomes a revenge tale. And we aren't telling that story. It's not John Wick in the 50s. This is something completely different. And yeah, you want to explore kind of the loss of that strong patriarchal figure in the family, and again, how do people deal with that void that's created by not having that person there.
Well, I think that's, well. Actually, first, let me point out John Wick in the '50s. That might be your next pitch for something else. But just
Yeah.
we'll hold that off to the side. If you need a writing partner, I'm here. But yeah. I think the way that you deal with the grief, and just to kind of, I don't know, go back to it for a second. I don't want to you know I don't know, make this whole conversation about that or anything, but it is such a unique perspective that you're putting there on the page, because I mean, you think of grief, and you have to remember every single person deals with grief in a different way, and then every time you deal with grief, it's different. You lose your parent, it's different than losing, I don't know, a spouse, different than losing a
Yeah.
child, different than losing a cousin, a best friend. Like every single one of these things hits you so differently. You deal with it differently, you come to terms with it differently, or you don't come to terms at all. There's so many different caveats in that, and different ways that people deal with that. And I think for you to be able to translate that to a page on a comic book is really a testament of really good storytelling, and your ability to tell that story, and the creative team there. So definitely kudos to you guys for that.
Thank
I
you.
felt that on the page, which is, that's intense.
And we're our touchstones with this a lot were like ET, Close Encounters,
Mhm,
Poltergeist. These stories with families where these eh, in otherworldly things are happening,
mhm.
but they're also a really fully formed family as well. Where where they still had relationships between brothers and sisters. There was good things that happened and bad things that happened. There was fights and closeness. So we wanted to have like the layers of the family there too, and fully formed characters dealing with this grief first, and then this otherworldly or bizarre things that happen in the rest of this story. And that's what I really appreciated about like ET as a kid, is like the main characters were kids, but they were actually like real people too. They weren't just like, you see a lot of stereotypical kids in fiction stories. You know, this kid's the brat, this kid's the jerk, this kid's the goofball, and they're just kind of one dimensional, one note. I never really want to do that with my kid characters. I really like writing kids a lot. So we wanted to make sure we had these fully formed characters dealing with these different emotions all at the same time.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you guys definitely encapsulated that there on the page. So very, very well done there. How is it, if I may ask, if you don't mind,
Yeah, no.
working with a writing partner? You guys did this together, and like you said, you've done a few things together now with Tim Daniel. How did that relationship come about? What's it like working with a
Yeah.
partner on that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be hard. I
Mhm.
thought it was going to be, oh man, we're going to butt heads, and it really felt like cheating. It feels like, honestly, it feels like cheating. It's like having a friend help you on a test who's smarter than you. You know, um, and me and Tim were friends for probably 10 years before we started writing together. We met. We both volunteered at the Skybound booth when The Walking Dead was first launched as a TV show. So that will kind of age us back a little bit. So, the San Diego Comic-Con before The Walking Dead came out in October of that year. So that was July. My really good friend, Sean Kirkham, was friends with Cena Grace, who was Robert's editor.
Mhm.
And Cena reached out to a bunch of people to see if they wanted to help at the booth, and it was a free trip to San Diego Comic-Con with a free hotel, and I don't say no to that. And we worked the booth and met Tim there, and me and Tim connected right away, and just stayed friends. And then I knew Tim was was writing comics and trying to break in and get stuff published, and so I'm like, oh, I should, I'd try to write comics when I was in my teens.
Mhm.
This is back in the 90s explosion, and there's a lot of talent hunts and stuff. So I'd written scripts before and sent them in, and never got anywhere. Then kind of real life took over, and then I start working these conventions, and I'm like, oh, why don't I try to do this again? I'd always kind of written just for fun. And so I started writing scripts, and I would send them to Tim, and he would give me feedback. And we had that kind of relationship for a while. But for some reason, never really thought about like co-writing until, I think it was 20, 2019, um, like right before the pandemic or right at the pandemic. He's like, Lou, we should do some stuff together. And I'm like, oh, heck yeah. And so our writing process just naturally, organically evolved from there. We didn't really have to have this kind of discussion of like, hey, you do this and you do this and you do this. It just kind of developed. So we'll have long conversations on the phone, breaking stuff down and deciding, what goes where and what the characters are going to be like, and just talking it all out.
Mhm.
And once we have enough of that, I'll start writing a draft, and I just go usually straight to a draft. I don't like outlines. We just had to turn in an outline to Mad Cave. Oops. We had to just turn in an outline for something else that's not been announced yet, and I can't talk about. That we just reverse engineered from the full scripts that have already been written,
Wow.
because I don't like. I'm more of a pantser. I'm come from the Stephen King school of writing, where you
Mhm.
kind of create this world, create characters, put the characters in the world, and then see what they do. So a lot of times I don't know what's going to happen until it happens, until I write it, or at least until me and Tim talk about it. And Tim is a good planner, so he'll give me a long kind of like he'll give me a wide path to walk down, and I'll kind of meander down this path as I'm writing and making choices as I go. And if I see a fork, I'll text him or call him and say, "Hey, I was thinking of doing this," and he usually says, "Oh yeah, that's awesome, do that." And so then we do that thing, and so I'll write it all as just what we call a vomit draft, which is just it's a non-paged and paneled script with dialogue, because I connect through characters through dialogue, and I want to have their voice really solidly down before I can really start writing them. So once I have a character in my head, I can start to use their voice. And once I can start to use their voice, then I'm good to go. And so I'll usually write all the dialogue and kind of stuff that happens, send it to him, and he'll do his pass on it. He'll send it back to me. I'll do a script from there, breaking it down to panels and pages. If he hasn't already broken it down to panels and pages, because sometimes he'll do that as he's doing his run. And then back and forth, we just kind of volleyball it or ping pong it back and forth until we feel like it's done. So it just, I always think of it like saying like, oh, we each do the part we like the most, and it's really true, because he's really good at reading something and finding opportunities to either develop a character more or to add a little twist. He loves to add those like, oh, but what if this happened to this person? And then we come back around to that. And I'm kind of like a straightforward, like, this happened. So he adds a lot of variety and twists, and like, oh, would it be cool if this thing came back later? I'm like, yes, that would be cool. uh, so yeah, it just worked. I mean, and I don't know if that would happen with other people. I don't know if I could co-write with anybody else, because it happened so perfectly with Tim that there was no struggle, there was no ego, there was never any kind of fighting or disagreements about our style of what we do. And I can tell him, hey, we need an outline for this, and he'll do the outline. I'm like, hey, we need a pitch for this, he'll do the pitch. And then he'll say, hey, we need a script, and I'll write you a script. And it really worked. It works perfectly. It's so easy.
Very cool. Now, how is it working on something like this, where you're working with Tim, versus something like Resonant, where you're scripting all of that by yourself? You're coming up with all those ideas on your own.
Yeah, I mean, it's just lonelier, I guess. You don't have anybody to talk to about it, and a lot of times, you talk to people anyways, and because sometimes when you're trying to work out a problem, like, I don't know what's going to happen here, and you start talking to someone about the problem, and it already fixes itself before you get to them putting in any input. So a lot of times you just need to talk to somebody. So I spent I self-published for quite a few years before Tim and I started working together. I have scripts upon scripts upon scripts that I wrote by myself. I can do that in a heartbeat. But again, it's way more fun to do it with a friend, and it's way easier when someone is doing half the work for you. So yeah.
How about Marco on this book? How did you guys get involved with Marco? Is somebody that you guys knew beforehand? Did you hook up?
Yeah, Tim and Marco worked together on this like 10 years ago.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah, so they had known each other for a really long time. I don't know how they met, but yeah, so Marco was always going to be part of this. This was never going to be like, if Marco couldn't do it, we wouldn't do it. And that was what we knew going in. Like, this was a group pitch thing where some projects like Resonant, I didn't have an artist attached to it, and some other pitches that I can't talk about yet that are becoming comic books now, we may have pitched with one artist and it didn't work out, and now there's a different artist on it. So yeah, a lot of times you don't have an artist, or you have maybe a couple in mind, or scheduling it just doesn't work out. But this was always going to be a Marco book. There was there was no way, the way this book was conceived, that we could do it with literally anybody else, and we wouldn't do it with anybody else. So yeah, Marco was always basically the beating heart of this project, and me and Tim and Jason Wordy and Justin Birch, who does the letters, all kind of revolved around him and on his, we took his style and wanted to accentuate his style, and really it's as much of a Marco book as it anybody's book. So there was never any like artist question like, oh, who should we try to work with this one? And yeah, it was always going to be Marco on this book.
And you're right about what you were talking about before. With it's very stylized. It's a unique comic book, like illustration perspective. It's really cool. It's like very throwback, but it works so well. And I love when people are able to do that. One of my favorite illustrators of all time is Mike Allred, who
Yeah.
kind of capitalizes on that '60s pop art thing. And it's very different than this, but it's very stylized, and it works very well for this book and for the tone that you guys are trying to get across.
Yeah, and I love artists that you automatically know it's them.
Mm-hmm.
That
too.
may are very stylized or very unique,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, oh, you don't have to look at the title page to know who illustrated that. Exactly. If you pick up an Allred book, it's an Allred book. If you pick
Yep.
up a Mignola book, it's Mignola. Um, right now, Coda is one of my favorite books from Boom, and Mateus, I don't know how to say his last name, but his work on there is so like stunningly beautiful, and no one else does what he's doing right now. Or like Dan Mora, who draws every single DC book that exists right now.
Very well.
Yes, and I've been a huge fan of his, for before his DC days. So yeah, I really attached to a style, even more so than say like technicality, like being technically perfect and that sort of thing. And Marco's unique. Marco's not a lot of people do what he does right now, and yeah, he's definitely a throwback to the masters of old, and he really studies those guys. And he's a really like a professional artist. So that guy has a full-time job as a teacher and is able to put out pages per week.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a pro. He's a pro. And just can't say enough good things about working with him. And again, like this was always going to be a Marco book.
Well, it seems like the creative team obviously like really really fleshed out here. It works really well with the tone you guys are going for with all of you on board, and I can't imagine anybody taken out of this scenario and replaced with anybody else. I think it
No,
it really
and
works
yeah,
as is.
and Justin and Jason Wordy from
Mhm.
he did Resonant. If you look at the colors
Yep.
of Resonant, they're brilliant, and he should have won 16 Eisners for that one book. And he really kind of looked at the style and had this whole idea for how he was going to color it. That all came from him.
Wow.
So I mean, the thing is, I think that's the sign of a good project too, where people are all taking ownership at every level. And he just kind of invented this coloring style. It's like, if you look at some of the pages, it looks like the coloring is offset, like
Hmm.
the printing press missed a little bit, like it would back in the days. You'd have pages where, Spider-Man's red went above outside of his lines, and there's outside of the lines coloring here, and it's all choices that he made. And the coloring in this again is Eisner worthy and brilliant. And I think Jason is, I've said this on other podcasts, there's nobody better than him. He may be he's at the top echelon. There are other colorists that are great, but there's no one better than him. And I think he's really underrated because his colors look so perfect for each book.
Hmm.
He matches the book that he's working on so perfectly. It's kind of like, it looking too easy. like an actor's too good because it looks too natural.
Mhm.
And so it looks so perfect for the book that I don't think it stands out enough until people really pause and take their time to look at it. So I'll be a Jason Wordie fanboy for my entire life, just from seeing what I saw, what went in the Resident pages before and after, and once you see that, you can't help it. I mean, the dude's just an artist, and he just happens to work in color on comic books, and that's his medium, and totally underappreciated. But yeah, you could buy this book just for the colors. I guarantee it.
Yeah, just amazing artwork throughout. The illustrations, colors, the letters look great. Everything in this is very visually appealing and written really well at that. I really excited to see what the second issue brings. I can't wait for that to come out so I can check that out. But yeah, you guys are absolutely going to want to make sure that you hop onto this first issue. I don't have an FOC date in front of me, but usually it's about a month out.
Yeah, it's February 25th, I think.
Yeah, that would
Let's
make
see.
sense.
Yeah, a couple. It's our 26th. I think it's 2 weeks from when we're recording this today on the 12th. So it should be the 26th of February. So get those orders in. Mad Cave is doing some cool stuff this year.
Yeah, and that's something I really like to point out, in every episode of the podcast, where I talk to a creator and we're talking about one of their books. The most important thing that you guys can do as a comic book fan, a member of this audience, whatever, is make sure that you get into your local comic book shop, or write them an email, give them a call, whatever you have to do, and let them know that you want that book added to your pull list pre-FOC. That is seriously the most important thing you can do. That's how you support, people like DB, and that's how you make sure that DB can, make another issue and come out with another cool series and all of that. Very, very important. So
you gotta vote with those dollars, and
Yes.
Marvel and DC try to kind of like send out a massive tidal wave of titles, with crossovers and special events to kind of blot out the sun when it comes to indie comics. So your $4 or $5 spent on an indie comic go a long way to keeping indie comics around.
Yes,
so if you like indie comics, you don't have to buy mine, buy some, and just put them on your pull list, pre-order them. Those number one orders are key. And as I trade weight too, but if you have a series or a creator's team that you really enjoy, supporting those monthly books is gigantic.
Well, I can promise all of you out there that you're going to want a trade of this whenever it's wrapped up, but you're going to absolutely want these single issues. You're definitely going to want this first one. First appearances galore, whenever this gets turned into a movie or whatever, and you've got your nice copy of number one sitting there, you'd be very grateful. But yes, please indeed make sure that you let your local comic book shop know to add that to your pull list pre-FOC. I think that's all I've got for you, DB, unless you have anything else that you want to say. But all your links will be posted in the show notes, and of course, direct links to the book as well as through Mad Cave's site. But please let everybody know, let us know what you're working on that you can tell us. Let us know where we can find you.
Let's just say that, Morningstar is one of several that are going to be coming out that should be announced shortly. But yeah, pick up the Resident Complete Edition, End After End, issue 9, and the trades. If you want the trades, both trades will be out around the same time. And then from Nightfall Double Feature, we're doing a Denizen, which is Tim and my story from there, with Chris Sheehan, and again, my boy Jason Wordie on on colors.
So
I'll
it's gonna look good.
I'll drag them everywhere I can with me. But we're putting out a Denizen trade that you can order as well that just has our story from Nightfall double feature in there. There's also a Cemeterians trade, which is the other story that was in there by Daniel Kraus and Monhouse on art, and Kurt Michael Russell on colors. So both stories were great. I'd love it if you picked up Denizen. It's another family story. If family stories are your thing, I'm your guy. I'm always always seem to be drawn to writing stuff about families and siblings and parent kid relationships and something about my childhood trying to work through. So help me out by continuing to support my therapy on the comic book page.
Hey, and we will. Well, DB, again, thank you so much. And all you guys listening, that will be posted in the show notes. So there'll be links to everything there. DB, I'm looking so forward to this physical copy coming out so I can go to my local comic book shop and have one in my hands and then read it again. And then for issue number 2 as well. Thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me today.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Of course. And if anybody's going to Emerald City Comic-Con, I'll be there at the Second Rocket booth with Tim Daniel and my buddy Sean Kirkham. We have a booth together, and then doing a signing for Morningstar #1. Shh, don't tell anybody. But there may be some special exclusive for the convention. I don't know. But if you're at Emerald City, come by the Mad Cave booth, and I'll also be doing a Mad Cave panel at that show. So
amazing. There you go. Go get some signed comics and go listen to DB talk.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man. I hope you have a wonderful night and much appreciated.
Thank you.